Hi, guys, and welcome to Keep Hope Alive podcast. We have a great show for you today. We have Dorian Johnson here with us, who is going to be talking about the chemistry of virtue. So, thank you. I'm so excited to have you on.
Well, you know what? I think we've been trying to do this for a little bit, and I'm excited to be here to share a little bit of some things that I have learned over the last little bit that help not only with grief and loss, but also help define ourselves so that we can be a lot more authentic in our lives.
That is
So,
amazing. And yeah, I can't wait to get started on that. But first, I gotta ask a topic, a question topic from you, really
okay,
quick. Out of the last 15 years, how many weddings have you been to?
gosh, I want to say maybe three or four
Okay,
is all.
gotcha.
I'm not.
Oh,
I've had the opportunity and been invited to go crash a few. I just haven't yet.
like Wedding Crashers. I
Yeah.
love that movie.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Just chose not to yet. Yet.
I'd be like, I was just a photographer first, and I just thought I got the
Yeah.
invitation to come. Yeah, I could crash also.
Exactly.
Oh my God. But so I got one more question about that because our sponsor here is lifeonrecord.com. So when the guests are entering for the ceremony, usually there's this thing to sign. What is that thing to sign?
My understanding is called a guest book.
Yay, good. Yeah. So instead of that guest book, Life on Record does a vintage rotary phone. So where your guest can pick it up, the phone, and leave a message. So it'd be like,
Oh my gosh. I
congratulations.
love
Yeah,
that.
it's awesome. And not only
I
wedding,
love
I mean,
that.
birthdays, corporate events, any event where there's a lot of people, and the gift is voice here. I mean, that's what it really comes down to.
Absolutely.
So they'll leave that message there, and to the side of that, they'll have a QR code for the guests to take out their mobile phones and scan it. And then they can leave their messages either before or after the event. So what they do once all the messages are collected, they'll burn it on a 12-inch vinyl record, or they have a keepsake speaker, which I always call the boom box. That's my little trademark on that.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I love it. But their plans are great. They start at $99. You get the toll-free number, not the phone, but the toll-free number for 1 year, and you get that keepsake. So for more information on them,
Oh, I love
please
that.
visit them at www.lifeonrecord.com. All right. So, Dorian, who are you?
Well, I am someone who has learned over the last almost 7 years what it's like to heal from grief. And the fact that it's okay. We don't have to feel guilty in the process of healing from our grief when we find happiness, even if it's just little things of it. Okay, the reason I we never ever uh, want to join this journey, but almost 7 years ago, I lost my oldest son, and he went for a hike just before Memorial Day weekend, the Thursday before Memorial weekend, back in 2017. And he went on this hike. I wasn't concerned because 19, he had hundreds of miles on his boots, had hiked all over. This is a new
Mhm.
place, but we had record snow snowpack that year, and so the runoff was extremely high. And so we had talked about, I didn't know that where he was going to come down off of the mountain, that there's no trail, it's really steep, all of that. But when he went on this hike, he also had a 10-week-old pup. And so he took her everywhere with him, and he left on Thursday um, about 1, and I got a text from him. The last text I ever got from him said, "This is a beast of a hike, but talk about a view." And so I didn't, I tried texting, calling him, all of that. He didn't come home. We got the search and rescue involved, looked all day on Friday. Um, Nothing. Saturday morning, just before noon, they found him in the river. And what we figured is that he um, went up to the top of the mountain on the side that has the trail, got all the way to the top, and there's a little canyon. It's not big, but on the east side where there's no trail, I know that he came down that way. He had a shotgun with him because he was turkey hunting, and but he got to the point where it was really steep, it was really nasty willows, all of that. There was no way that he was going to get back or cross the river or get over to where he needed to be. We don't know what happened, but that was a long, long, long search. And so there was so many lessons that I learned from a year to the day. Sorry, I'm going to mute this over here. A year to the day after he had passed, there was 10 of us who took a memorial hike up to the top of the mountain, and we took one of his lacrosse helmets, and we took a little plaque that had his last text, put it up there, and put a little container with some pens and pencils and some paper, basically saying, "What did it take for you to make this hike?" And every now and then somebody will go up there that I know and will look in there and they read some of these and they're like, what people are saying is beautiful. It's amazing because they're actually listening to the whole experience and saying, you know what, this is what it took for me to get up. I had to have courage. I had to have, endurance. I had to have all of these different things.
Yeah.
So that I could make it not just up the trail, but there's a place where you have to go up the side hill and make your own trail to get up on top. And it's tough. It's brutal, right? So there was, as someone who has lost a child, there's so many things that you can either start asking the question, why? You can say, why did this happen? Or what could I have done? Especially as a dad, especially as a man, we say, what else could I have done to help protect him? Well, pure and simple, he was 19 years old. He was adult. And up to that point, he had proven himself to be such an amazing kid who governed himself so well that I keep hearing stories about parents who will tell me that if they knew that Bailand, my son's name is Bailand, and if they knew that he was there, they would let their kids go because they knew that nothing was going to happen. And these are these fun parties but there's no drinking, no drugs, no smoking, no sex, and I asked, some of his friends after he had passed, I said, did you guys ever worry about, drinking or drugs or sex or bad music or bad movies or anything like that? And they're like, no, we never had a problem with that. And I said, well, that sounds pretty boring. And they look at me like, what? That's kind of weird for a dad to say that. And I said, no, think about that. How amazing is it that your parents know that when they go out or when you go out and there's one person who they don't have to be concerned all of a sudden, and that's my son, right? So how this proceeds is after he had passed, I spoke at his funeral. I don't know how, but his mom and I had been divorced about 5 years up to that point. And I had him, he stayed with me during high school. So I knew him through that time. So I wanted to give him the send off that I felt he deserved, and basically just went through and said, "We love Bailand because he loved us first." And I pulled a scripture from the Bible that, the reason we love Christ is because he loved us first. And I thought to myself, you know what? We love Bailand because he loved us first, because he was kind to us first and compassionate and understanding and accepting and tolerant and all of these different things.
Mm-hmm.
So as I started studying, as I started looking into these more, I realized that all of these things are virtues. And we don't focus on that concept very often. But I looked at this and I, did a little research and went back to the Bible and you know, anytime it said virtue, I wanted to know what it meant, what it said, why, what was the purpose of that word being there. I also went to there was a biblical encyclopedia, and it talked about virtue, and this is what really stirred me up a little bit to say, okay, there's something here, because what it said was is that the English definition of virtue is excellence of mind and excellence of
Mm-hmm.
character. Okay, so it's either intellectual virtue or moral virtue. Okay, and I'll talk about that in just a second also. But um, if we go back further, the Greek word is the definition is a manifestation of power. So
That's
whether you whether you accept my kindness or compassion or patience or anything, it doesn't matter, because that power behind that virtue is amazing, because it's not from me, it comes through me. Okay, so I look at this and I go and I visit with a counselor. It's not the counselor I worked through everything with, but she had lost her daughter at 19, and Bailand was 19. And so we were talking about a few things, and I just asked her, I said, if virtue like courage and integrity, honesty, love, any of these things, happiness, joy, any of these things that are virtues, if you have that in the conversation with one of your, one of your patients, one of your clients who you're talking to, how does that affect the conversation? And she looked at me and she said, it changes the whole dynamic. And I said, really? And I said, how? She said, because shame and doubt and guilt and fear cannot be in the same room if happiness, joy, courage, integrity, honesty, any of the gratitude, any of these things are in the room. So it allows us to take our guard down and to
yeah.
be authentic and be who we are and say. So we talk about, the intellectual virtue, which is the thoughts of our mind. The moral virtue is the thoughts of our heart. They speak two different languages. So if, as we're talking here, if
Mm-hmm.
something is said and I come back to you and you're based around intellectual virtue and I'm based around moral virtue, and I say, you hurt my feelings, pure and simple, it was facts. Oh, I don't doubt that. I believe the information. I believe what we just talked about, but it was the approach. It was coming at me and just saying, listen here, da 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 da. It's the tone, it's the approach, all of that. And I can't explain to you using logic
Yeah.
and reason why that hurts my feelings. So we have to learn, if somebody uses intellectual virtue wording or thoughts as opposed to moral virtue, we're never going to connect. We're never going to understand each other, except if we add a little of the opposite, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. So I'm seeing this big chart and how do you use this in my head. And, I think you're really on to something, like stuff that people just don't look into. And it's kind of almost like a spiritual gift. And hey, research this and do this, but it's something you need to
Yeah,
teach, is what I'm picking up on.
yeah.
So,
Well, and to that point, there are so many things that, like I've mentioned that I have received, and I'm like, what is this? I don't know. I write something down, so I have a note back here so it doesn't leave. And the chart, the table that you're talking about. So after I talked to my friend, she said, help me to understand. Okay, put it in a visual. So I went back and I researched, the 10 major, and some people say, oh, I like these values. It's not a value, it's a virtue, because a value can change, right?
mm-hmm.
Virtue, it's a universal, it's something. Respect is respect. It may be
Yes.
seen differently in another country or culture, but respect is respect,
Mm-hmm.
right? So so what I did is I took 10 different virtues: wisdom and justice and fortitude and self-control and love and positive attitude, hard work, integrity, gratitude, and humility. And what I did is I researched out every single one of those and put them together.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. We lost him just for a second. There he is. Are you there?
Yeah. And
Oh,
that's how a bill becomes a law. I mean, that's how you make $1 million. I hope you wrote that down.
oh yeah, because if you don't misplace it, right?
Yes, yes. I'm not going to repeat that part, right?
Yeah.
So if, if we look at all of those virtues, there's different elements inside each one of those virtues. For example, we look at wisdom. We know that it's not just some guy who lives in a cave with a long beard that we have to go and ask questions what the meaning of life. There's logic and reason, and there's wonder, there's all of these things here, but there's also creativity and imagination
Hmm.
and
Yep.
intuition and spirituality and wonder and all of these things that are parts of wisdom. So if we look at this and we say, what is it about wisdom? Which parts are part of me? Well, if we look at it at all of it, so what I did is I took all of the periodic table of elements, got rid of
Hmm.
all the elements, and I based it
Gotcha.
around I based it around um, the same type of concept. So it looks like the table of elements. It's just the periodic. I call it the periodic table of virtues.
Okay.
Now, here's what here's the reason why it is so important, in my opinion, is because first and foremost, every single one of those virtues and the elements are inside of us.
Hmm.
Okay. So if we look at this and we say, um, well, what about patience? I'm not patient. And
Hmm.
I say, well, let's go over to the store and we'll get behind the oldest, slowest person.
Hmm.
And we're patient on purpose. We wake that up. That's all we have to do is wake it up. Okay. Now, if we get behind that person, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to look back at, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so old. I'm slow. You guys can go around me if you want. No, we're just
No,
fine.
yeah.
We're just fine. You take your time. And so all of a sudden, it's not just patience there, it's kindness and compassion, acceptance of where they are, tolerance, it's happiness, joy. It's all of these things that we wake up inside of ourselves, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
and as we do this, we ask, what can we help you with? Can we help you find some stuff? Oh, I have the hardest time getting them off the top shelf and all of this. So what happens for us is just by waking up to kindness and the patience, we get this good shot of oxytocin and serotonin, endorphins, all of the things that are going to help us if we are struggling with depression, anxiety, anger, addiction. All of a sudden, we get this shot of something inside of us that helps us to be happy. And guess what? So does the person we're helping. And guess what? The people who watch, the onlookers,
Yeah.
the ones who are just watching and they are like, oh man, look at that. That's awesome. So if we look at it that way, we did something on purpose. We're aware of what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, we have created something, this safe space for us to be, um, to create happiness, to create joy, to create this amazing experience, not just for us, but for them. And the next time we see them, there's this connection. Hey, are you doing okay? How are you? Right?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
anybody else who's watching, maybe they didn't want to go to the store, but as they watch, they're like, oh, I needed that today. And then from there, it's not paying it forward. It's them going out and being who they are authentically, because we did this because we wanted to, we chose to, right?
Yeah.
So we look at this and we say, with this table of virtues, two things can happen. The first one, I mean, it's all encompassed, but if we create a virtue formula, which means that if we say, this is what I need. So, like after my son had passed away, there were times for me to get out of bed. I'm like, okay, let's see if this is going to work. What do I need? I need courage. All right, there it is. I can at least sit up or put one foot on the floor. What else do I need? I need determination. There it
Mm-hmm.
is. And all of a sudden, whatever capacity I had at that moment is there. So all of a sudden, we can create these virtue formulas as to what we need while we're healing. Okay, but if we flip it on the other side, so to speak, we can even create these virtue formulas to say, this is who I am. This is, I'm going to define who I am. This is what I want the a situation to be, because we always have the anxiety of going into, we'll say, a family get together,
Yeah.
and we're just like, oh, it's going to be like the same thing. But if we go in there and we say, this is what I want, this is what I'm going to create. I'm going to wake up this, whatever it is. And if somebody is like being the same way they always are, if we look at them and we don't have to say, okay, what do I need? Or we can look at them and say, I'm so glad I got a chance to see you today. You are
Yeah.
one of my favorite. You are one of my favorite people. They don't have to know that you say that to everybody.
Yeah.
They don't have to know why. But
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it changes, because if they're one of your favorite people, they don't want to treat you the same way, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you look at this and you say, "This is you're accepting them," but I'm also offering the words you mentioned, grace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Earlier,
Now,
finding grace.
yes,
Yep.
yes. So I've got, the definition of all of these virtues and the elements. And the definition of grace is unmerited favor, kindness, and mercy. It unmerited. It's basically saying you didn't do anything for it. You didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm offering it to you freely. And so we look at this and say, well, give that person a little grace. What does that even mean? It means be kind.
Yeah.
Let them be human. Let them be imperfect. Because here's the other part: we don't offer ourselves much grace either. We say,
Gotcha.
"Oh my gosh, what an idiot! What is this and that?" But if somebody else does it, oh, it's fine. I totally get it. I do it all the time. Really? If you do it all the
Mm-hmm.
time, do you say, "Oh, that's fine"? Okay. So if we are able to define ourselves based on different things, that are inside of us, internal, as opposed to everything that's outside of us, whether it be our last name, whether it be a definition of a, a spouse, a husband or a wife, a sibling, a dad, a mom, an employee, an athlete, a student, whatever. All of those things are moving parts. All of those things can change. But here's the beauty of it. I can look at myself and say, this is who I am. As soon as I go out the door into the real world, I can say, I am. D is for dignity, and O is for originality, and R is for respect, I is for individuality, A is for authenticity, N is for nobility. That's how I'm going to be. And that's who I am in the real world, no matter who says what or does what. On the
Yeah.
flip side, if there's a disagreement or drama or whatever we want to call it, I can look at this and say, am I offering not only myself, but the other person respect, dignity? Am I acting with authenticity? And as soon as I
Yeah.
get back, I can walk through the door and say, today I was, P is for dignity. Oh, and all of a sudden I can be authentic and I can be completely vulnerable because it doesn't matter what anybody else says or does. I don't have to accept it.
Yeah.
Right now, last thing I'll say about this, because this is the part where it kind of gets, it can get a little bit deep, but it's the, all of a sudden it was a huge aha moment. Okay. How much about chemistry do you know?
If
Okay.
it was relationship chemistry, I know that, but
Okay. You're talking about the bow chicka wow wow kind, not
yeah.
the elements. All
I
right.
know, I know.
Okay.
I just didn't take that course.
Okay.
Love chemistry.
But neither did I. Okay. And so what I do, or what I did, is I went and showed this table to this guy who is a friend, and he taught physical science over at the high school. And he looked at me and he's like, "This is what you put together?" And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you know how the real table works?" And I said, "Nope." He's like, "Do you know what the atomic numbers are for?" I said, "I know they have numbers."
Hmm.
He's like, "Do you know what a proton is? Neutron is?" Uh huh. Do you know what they do? Mm-mm. Do you know what an electron is? Uh huh. Do you know what it does? Mm-mm. Do you know what a noble gas is? I said, "I've heard of it." I said, "I've heard of it." And all of a sudden he is like, "Wow." He's like, "Okay." I said, "Give me the high level. Just explain this." He's like, "I just can't believe you don't understand how that works, but you put this together." I said,
Hmm.
"Me too." Okay. So, very simply, the number is how many electrons they have. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, the nucleus inside this atom, that's its identity. And that's where the protons and neutrons are. Okay. Trust
Okay.
me, there's a method of my madness here. So, that identity never changes. The only way it changes is if you take out or add to protons or neutrons. But it doesn't, it cannot, it changes to something completely different. Okay. Now watch this. So that identity is constant and consistent. Okay.
Hmm.
An atom never has to identify as anything else. That
Okay,
makes sense?
gotcha. Yeah, it does.
Let me okay, let me give you an example from my perspective. So
Okay.
I wear regulars and boots sometimes. I mentioned I'm top of Utah, bottom of Idaho. It's rural country. We're not big city by any means, but I don't wear boots and Wranglers because I think I'm a cowboy, or because I have a horse, or because I'm on a ranch, or because of all of these other things. I wear them because it's comfortable, and I wear them because it's country, And so
Mm-hmm.
it's part of me. It doesn't, I don't set it up so that my identity is based around what I wear,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not a cowboy. So I never identify as because that's what I'm wearing,
Yeah,
right?
definitely.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Nothing changes inside me by putting these on. Okay. Now, if we understand our identity, then the next step is, how do we protect that? What do we do to make sure that is constant and it's consistent and all of that? So what my friend said is, there is a circle around the nucleus. He called it an orbital. I call it a circle. Okay. And he laughs at me every time. I guess it's a circle. It's a circle. All right. So inside on the first circle, this is where the electrons are. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so there's one circle. The most electrons it can have on there is 2. If you go with another circle, the most you can have is 8 electrons.
Okay.
Okay. Now, the reason I say the most you can have is that not every element or not every atom has 2 or 8. Okay. So I say, and this is where a noble gas comes into play. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I promise I'm almost there, and this is going to blow your mind. Okay. So
Yeah.
if we have the nucleus with the first circle, we have 2 electrons, and then we have the second circle and we have 6 electrons.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's never going to be a noble gas on its own. So what's going to happen is an, an element like hydrogen that has 1
Mm-hmm.
electron is going to look around and say, who can I give this to? Who wants this? And it's willing to give it to any other element as long as there's a connection. It doesn't matter whether it's going to blow something up or not. Okay.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of a doormat.
Mm-hmm.
It'll give it away for a heartbeat. But on the flip side, if there's an element that has 6 or 7, 5, 6, or 7, it's always looking to take, so it can be stable, or so it can get to that point where it's full, but it doesn't borrow, it takes it. So you have something that has, I'm going to use this term, the narcissistic tendencies, that's willing
Mm-hmm.
to take whatever it wants, and it doesn't care if it blows up or what, because it deserves it, or so it thinks. Okay.
Ah, okay.
A noble, okay. Now watch this. A noble gas is one that has 2 electrons and then 8. And it never has to go around and say, how you doing? Can I give you something, or can I take away, or whatever? It just is. It is absolutely stable. It doesn't have to do anything else for itself. If it connects to something, it's already there, but it doesn't have to. It's not looking to fulfill
Gotcha.
itself or complete itself.
Gotcha.
Now, watch this. Okay. If we go back, this is the part that I was like, oh my gosh, we have the nucleus, the identity. It doesn't change. So in the first circle, what if we change the electrons to virtue elements in
Mm-hmm.
integrity? So we have authenticity and vulnerability. And everybody says, that's going to scare the hell out of me.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
I look at your face and you're saying, "Oh my gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
I was
out.
just like,
I'm
how
out.
does that
Thank
work?
you." Okay, watch this. So vulnerability is basically, we know what that somebody could mentally or emotionally kill you,
Mm-hmm.
and whether you're okay with it or not, that's what it is. Authenticity is you are who you are, and somebody may not like it, but guess what? That's who you are. But
Mm-hmm.
those are the two that people play with the most, is saying that, guess what? You're an idiot if that's what you are authentically. And vulnerability, I can manipulate you and control you. Okay. So we have the nucleus, we have vulnerability and authenticity, and we say, how, how can I protect myself and the vulnerability, the authenticity, and my identity? How do we do that? Well, how many other virtue elements are there? We can set up courage. We can
Yeah.
set up gratitude, being appreciation. We can set up 8 different virtues on
Mm-hmm.
that second circle, and each one of them will protect our vulnerability and our authenticity and our identity. Does that make
Wow.
sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I was like, you need to, you do have a book on all this too, right?
Mm, well, that's the other one I need to write, because I
You do
co-authored
need
a
to
book
write it.
about, yeah, I co-authored a book about looking for my son, and the taking the memorial hike the year after, and talked about the life lessons and some of the things that happened during the search, and what makes him who he is and all of that. Then I finished a book called A Day in the Life of Grief that talks about 10 different myths that go along
Mm-hmm.
with grief. But I also attached the different life, or I'm sorry, different secondary losses that go along with something. So if we say, you know what, time heals all wounds. Oh, no, it doesn't. It does not. But the loss that we feel is backed up by time heals all wounds. That loss that we feel, that's a secondary loss from that experience. It's not an actual loss, but it's something that we can't ever get back. Like, for example, if we say the loss of reality, or the loss of self-trust, or the loss of a connection, attachment, things like that, we have to figure out how that works and why it hurts, right?
Yeah.
And so we go over here and we look at virtue and how it heals the losses, how it debunks the myths and all of that. Okay, so this is, if you can imagine, this is what I receive when, not long after I lose my son,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. How am I sane after that, but still able to put all of this together? Now, if you think about it, I haven't said much about the loss of my son.
When you were going over
I've
all that,
talked
yeah.
more about
Yeah.
yeah, but I talk about the healing aspect of virtue, and I also talk about the defining aspect of virtue, to say, who are you? Who
You're
are
you're her
you? You
genius
know?
to find this pattern out. I think this would be good for so many people because it's like a
Yeah,
roadmap
yeah,
you've created to help everybody focus on what really matters in life. And there is hope, but to learn that process, you know, put
yeah,
this here and it's a lot to take in. I'm going to tell you that, but I know in my heart, once you hear it and understand it, it will all come down to it, and it's going to help a lot of people
yeah,
with grief.
yeah. I'm working with someone who, she has been through a bunch of things herself, but yet, she has helped coach individuals, and is certified in CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, and all of this. So as I'm explaining some of this stuff to her, she's like, "Oh my gosh, this is huge! This and this." So we're basically putting a program together to teach people how to climb a mountain. And so we
Wow.
take each life lesson
Yeah.
and to say, here's here is the virtue that goes along with it. Like, if all of a sudden, share two things. If there is not a trail, you still have to, if you want to be to a certain place, you have to stick with the integrity of the hike,
Oh yeah,
right?
definitely.
You have to be vulnerable, you have to be authentic, you have to, all of these things. But when it comes down to it, it's the fact of what do you know about integrity inside of you? What do you learn on a hike about integrity and that, right?
Mm-hmm.
See, the other part is as you're going up the trail, let's say it gets, there's a lot of loose gravel, loose rocks. It's a little dangerous in that, and you your foot slips and you go down. Okay, you bang your knee, and you start bleeding, and oh my gosh, do you need stitches? No, but it hurts like hell. And why did we even take this hike? But at the same time, at the same moment, you have grass and bushes that are overgrown on the trail. And when
Mm-hmm.
you are down there, you look over and you make eye contact with a baby deer that you would not have seen from the top. Or you see a little nest, or you see a little spring, or you see something that, again, you would not have seen from the top.
Yeah.
So we look at after our knee heals and we see that scar, and somebody says, "Where'd you get that scar from?" We can say, "It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life." Because I was hiking here and here. And this is the experience. It's the beauty that we find in the pain and the hurt that we go through for something,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So for me, the long and short of it is you've got to find the beauty as you go along. And there's virtue in everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of just looking for it and being present, being aware, pulling yourself all the way back and saying, you know what, if I don't get to the top of the mountain, I'm not a failure
Yeah.
because I have different opportunities of learning as I go, right?
Yep.
And we can look at things and say, this is what I learned. Oh my gosh, if I wouldn't have gone on this hike, then what just happened down here and all of this stuff, it makes much more sense because as this as the trail goes up the mountain and it gets steep, all of a sudden, if we stick to it, we're going to lift ourselves higher on that mountain a lot quicker, and we can look around and say, "I never would have known. I would never would have
Yeah.
been able to see this if I didn't stick to the task of knowing that, yeah, it's going to be a tough hike, but there's going to be amazing views the whole entire way."
Yep.
You
It's
know,
the little things. You'll see things. I remember in Virginia climbing up a mountain took like what, 2 hours. But the most beautiful thing I ever seen in my life was the water coming down. And my
yeah,
aunt's boyfriend at the time, he's like, I'm not letting you guys leave this mountain without drinking that water. And I remember cupping my hands to get the water. Oh my gosh. I wanted to like keep that
you
water
can
forever.
and you can still taste it. You can still feel it. You still know
Yes.
everything that happened just
Yep.
by gutting it out and getting there. And all of a sudden, you say to yourself, "Oh my gosh, that was worth it." I'm so tired, stuff like that. But I will never forget that moment.
You see, and it's the
You
little
know,
moments, even like we were talking about mountain and climbing, and I remember I went to my favorite park, but something told me like just getting down to my little cubby hole where I like, it's beautiful to me. It's so surreal. And I love frogs. I've never seen a frog out there. I've been down this way, and usually I'll stand and just stay there. But I decided to sit down that day and just really enjoy it on the rock. and there was a little brown frog sitting right next to me, looking at the same view. And I was like, hey, what's up? But I'll always remember that because,
Yeah,
I got to where I wanted to be. I sat down, and what I liked the most was sitting right next to me. And I was just, I always remember
yeah,
that moment. Yeah.
yeah. And it's one of those where, how did that happen?
Yeah.
That's what you wanted.
Yeah,
Get the hell out of your
definitely.
own way. And all of a sudden, see, the thing I look at is we we put expectations on ourselves so much. The ideal self, the person we're always meant to be, in that, instead of saying, I'm going to be authentic and I'm going to be vulnerable in this moment,
Mhm.
like guaranteed, nothing else is going to matter. And if you have enough of those, guess what? You'll find happiness every single time you consciously focus on that,
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
And so,
Mm.
here's the beautiful part about what I've learned. Two things is, if we want to find beauty, if we want to find out what kindness looks like, or we want to find out what creativity looks like, or whatever, we go out and we look for it, and we can acknowledge it in somebody else, say, oh my gosh, look at how amazing that is, or that person is, or whatever. Guess what? You're looking in the mirror.
Yep.
Virtue recognizes virtue, beauty recognizes
Yep.
beauty, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we won't acknowledge it because we have all these other rocks that will tell us, hey, nope, because you're a jerk because of this right here. See, we're carrying around in this
Mm-hmm.
backpack.
Yep.
And we've got everything rehearsed. Now, if we look over here and we say, um, so many times we have different things, like programs set up, like the one I think about, and I'm just like, okay, we got to do something different, is a suicide prevention or suicide awareness program. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do I know that people are ready to be done because they're done with hurting? Absolutely. Okay. But let's go back to the concept of when I say, oh my gosh, you're one of my favorite people. I'm so grateful I get to see you today. Okay.
Yep.
The reason I say that is this: if you and I are on a program, and so it's a
Mm-hmm.
suicide awareness, suicide prevention, and you and I are have to watch each other's back, and when both of us are doing really good,
Mm-hmm.
and I say, okay, Nadine, I'm going out of town. Okay, are you okay? Are you good? I'm good. I haven't been this good, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how long.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'm going to go out of town because I've already made these plans a while ago, and we're working to where we are right now. I'm going to check in with you and make sure you're good through the weekend. Okay, great. I go out of town. I check in with you. No answer. Check in again. No answer. No response. You must be doing great. You must be up in the mountains hiking. You must be doing something good, something fun. I can't wait to hear what it is.
Yeah.
As soon as I roll back in town, guess what? Something happened and you were done. And you said, I was just waiting for him to go out of town so I could just take care of business. And you did it, right? How do I feel? I'm
Yep.
responsible for you. I'm responsible for what happened. And the guilt and the shame is never going to go away, right?
Yep.
But again, watch this. Watch this. If we say, okay, let's watch out for each other, well, what does that mean? Let me show you. I would always tell my kids that, when they're kind of, I'm not going to say misbehaving, but if I tell them to do something, they start getting, a little feisty or whatever, I'd be like, okay, make sure that we have the fence up at the top of the cliff so we don't have to deal with the ambulance at the bottom. And they're like, what does that mean? That means if you stop before you get to the cliff, there's not going to be any consequences. The ambulance is down there
Mm-hmm.
because you went off the cliff, and so there's going to be consequences. You're going to go to timeout, you're going to be grounded, you're going to be all of these things, right?
Yeah.
Now, if so many people with the suicide prevention, suicide awareness program are saying, don't say anything because you're going to trigger them and they're going to go jump off the cliff. Okay. If we keep saying, don't look at the cliff, don't look at the cliff, don't look at the cliff, it's going to be a humongous cliff.
Yeah.
But here's what I have learned. Here's what I've learned. Instead of saying, don't look at the cliff, I love walking up to some of these people, and I've done it with a lot of kids in high school and stuff. I'm just like, wait a second, you're that kid, you're the guy I want to be like when I grow up. Oh my gosh, I can see that red S on your chest. Do those muscles come with a shirt? What's going on here? Right? And tease them about and 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 say flat out, do you know how freaking awesome you are? Do you know how
Yeah.
amazing you are? And so
Hmm.
it's like everybody's gathered around. What do we do? We're gonna get ready to tackle him so he doesn't do anything. It's like I'm figuratively putting my arm around him and saying, you are one of my favorite people. You are freaking amazing. I want to be like you. Right. And they're like,
Yeah.
are you kidding me? Who are you? You're weird. Okay. So as we walk away, everybody's like, what just happened? The cliff disappears. There is no cliff.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, to take it one step further, that same kid, if I see them at a store, if they're in a group of their friends and stuff like that, I'm going to say exactly the same thing. Oh my gosh. And I'll walk up to the group and I'll look around and I'm like, you know this guy right over here? And they're like, yeah. Like, oh my gosh. This do you know how freaking awesome this guy is? He's the guy I want to be when I grow up. Da 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 da. Right?
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, they're standing there. They don't have to prove their worth because I'm saying, that guy's my hero. That guy, look at him. Look how cool he is. Right. And
Yeah.
everybody turns and looks at him differently.
Hmm. They
All of a
do.
sudden, it's like, what are they doing differently? What makes this guy that I hang out with all the time? What makes him so cool that this guy is making a big deal about it? Right.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that I did that with some kids in high school. Once they got out and they're dealing with real life, and um, haven't seen them in 2 or 3 years. All of a sudden, I see them, and I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me! Do you know how long I have been hoping to see you? You're that guy, aren't you? Da 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 da, and make a big deal. Get over here, give me a hug." And all of a sudden, they know that I'm not just blowing smoke, but I'm being authentic about how I feel about them,
Yeah.
right?
Good.
And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, the hug from them is tight and it's authentic, and all of a sudden, they know without a doubt
Yep.
that and I don't say I love you, I tell people I love the hell out of you. Okay, because what that means is that we just created this space for them to be reminded of what it feels like to be them. And when I say I love the hell out of you, that means we just had a perfect moment. Nothing else matters. Nothing else mattered when we were talking right there.
Yeah. I like that.
Are you doing
That's really
okay?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Wow.
that's a few things, a few light little thoughts.
Yeah. You're very insightful, which is amazing. So I just, yeah, I want you to have another book. Have you ever thought about like maybe changing it also and doing a second book for like this, how children can perceive this formula too?
Yeah, yeah. I've thought a lot about being able to put together a kid's book and say this is what this is, and make a character, and then they go
Hmm.
through every single virtue element.
Yeah.
You know, this day they learned this, and over here, this day they learned this, and tell stories and stuff. Absolutely,
Yeah,
I think
definitely.
it's
To
needed.
yeah, for guy or boys and girls different views on take of each one too. I think that
Yeah,
yeah, that
yeah,
would be very beneficial. So definitely. I
yeah.
mean,
There's a there there's a lot that I want to put together. I mean, I'm even putting together a book, two two other books right now. One of them is for dads who have lost a
hmm
child,
hmm
because that one is vital, because we don't know how to. There's a lot of people who, a lot of guys who look at me and say, I could never talk about
Oh,
things like you do. How? And I say, I don't know. But they say, but every time I listen to you, or when I've read your book or listened to it, I have been able to work through my stuff, not being able to talk about it, but I put myself in my situation while you're living yours, right? That's
yeah.
huge. The other one is about how first responders, EMTs, law enforcement, firefighters, even healthcare professionals can address the parents as they're going through something, because there were certain things that I'm just like, oh my gosh, I wish, as a helicopter is going around, stuff like that somebody would have stood by me and said, this is what's going on. This is why they're here. This is what's happening. This is this, and. But there was not a lot of communication. There was not a lot of, and the reality is shot at that point. You know,
Yeah, definitely. They should have like a care coordinator come out when they're going to do that to be with the
agreed.
person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm, putting it together and just saying, you know what? Here's what it is from my perspective. This is what needs to be kept in mind. I know you have to keep, the emotions and stuff like that out of the way, but go up and touch somebody on the shoulder, just so they know that you're not there as a construction worker or somebody who is, as soon as you're done here, you've gone home. Or else
yeah,
just make eye contact with somebody and say, don't go anywhere, buddy. I'm here for you. We're giving it our all, you know?
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Anyway,
Yeah, they definitely need to appoint somebody to do that. If they have, I
yeah,
mean, a company out here, it's for healthcare, but it's called Visiting Angels. And to just go check on the family that is needed and make sure,
yeah,
cleaning and cooking and do you need any of your medications, stuff like that. But having somebody there for families, that's important. So got to bring awareness to that one right away. So I'm
yeah,
glad you're writing a
yeah,
book about it.
absolutely.
And then you can
Yeah,
hire
yeah.
me to come and promote it. So
You know what? That's not a bad idea.
yeah, I know. I've wanted to go to Utah. So so but yeah, definitely you've been through a lot and the outcome is all positive energy and learning through everything. But finding the best out of the best, how to work with the situation at hand to help other people. Am I making sense? Yeah. I was like, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it's amazing. So with your book, I heard you say hear it. It's on Audible also.
So the first book, the book that I co-authored, is called The View from Above. It
Hmm
We self-published it on Amazon, and then I read the book for the audiobook, and that's on Audible.
Yay. Good. Good, good, good. Okay.
And
So
and
we have a
and then the
store.
second, yeah.
Hmm It's going on our
Oh, you do?
store
You got,
for my website. Yeah. So with
okay.
keephopealivepodcast.com, you can watch the podcast, but there's a store link and it has anybody who's ever published a book and they can go right and look for your book and purchase it right away.
That would be absolutely wonderful. The second
Yeah.
book, A Day in the Life of Grief, I'll get you the links so that, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll figure that all of that stuff out. That'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I want to help in any way I can. I'm there for you because you're there for the world too.
Wonderful.
So, yeah, definitely.
Oh,
And that copy of the chart that you actually sent to me that I just saw recently, that's amazing too.
mhm.
People are going to be asking to see that chart. It's wonderful. So hopefully, if allowed, I can post that too because that was wonderful. Or are you going to keep it for a
Yeah.
book? Hmm.
Mm. You know what? I've shared that with a lot of people, but I also know that it needs to be something. I mean, I've actually put kits together,
Yes,
so it has
that's a
that
good idea.
the table, but then it's broken down into different size cards with the definitions and stuff like that. So yeah, we can talk about that. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. So I like that idea. So that's wonderful. Well, I don't know how we're doing on time, but I hope we covered
Oh, we
everything.
went over. We went over. I get used to
But it
that.
was worth it. It was really worth it. I loved hearing your story and just I'm in awe. Like my mouth drops open again. Oh, so people don't know. He scared me right before we hit record.
Oh, that one was awesome. That was good.
Yeah. So I was like, what? Like my Jersey South, I was like, why? But I found grace. But definitely, I want to really quickly take a sip of water and thank our other sponsors too. Mm. For Keep Hope Alive. So the first one, of course, is lifeonrecord.com, the interactive guest book that I was mentioning. We also have Ogden Ventures LLC, Marquise Ogden. He is a retired football player. Believe he played on three different teams. He is now a keynote speaker and best-selling author and podcast host. So welcome to him. You can find him at www.marquiseogden.com. Our next one we have is Snap Bands. They're brand new to us as of today, so I can give a tidbit before their commercials going to be coming out pretty soon. But Facebook is where I found them, and Snap Bands is at www.snap. I'm going to just spell this out. It's SNAPPBANDZ. And they have these very inspirational they're bracelets and it'll have like hope, faith, just different things, dreaming. I got a hope one. They made me a hope one. But I always say cognitivity. Yeah, I always say cognitive thinking helps with anxiety, OCD, depression, and it goes in on their website of how it's actually done. And I'm going to be speaking on that too for them. And I believe we're going to do a podcast for them as well. Our next one is bridalshowsinc.com. They host about 5 different trade shows out of the year. Their next one is in Dallas, Texas at the end of January. So when you're planning events and you want to meet all the different vendors, you go there and they will have their display of what they do. You get to talk to them, make an appointment, maybe book them there. So you want to check out their stuff as well. Our next one is milesandSmilesEvents.com. Deborah Rose, her background is she's an investigator, but she also does events because she's a handwriting analysis and a lipstick reader. So I've seen her in action and she is amazing and she's accurate. Our next one is Bryce Harney, www.brycemagic.com. So Bryce is a magician and mind mentalist. He's been on TV left and right lately, and he does big corporate events and also like church events, and I guess party ones too. So check him out. He's fun, entertaining, and it's very exciting. So our next one is Richmond Punch, and that's richmondpunch.net. He graduated from the Juilliards. He's a violinist. He's been on, I think, two Lifetime shows in the background for violin. He's played in front of a million people before. Um, he's coming back home. He's from Dallas. He went to Atlanta and now he's coming back. So I'm very excited about that. So, but he does travel. So if you need a good violinist, check him out. Our last one is TK Hair Salon. I always have to show them off. They are based in Plano, Texas. But if you're a guy, girl, children, they do all different hairstyles. They're very nice and friendly there. Um, Also, they do the coloring updos for women who have to go to proms, I guess. So, but check out their stuff. It's tkhairsalon.com. Remember, guys, if you have any questions for myself or for Dorian, you can call us at 833-780-HOPE, which is 4673. I will make sure he gets those messages and we'll probably end up doing another podcast or something to get
I
them
hope so.
answered.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would be. So, and then I'm thinking just on the outside, I want to do some live streaming events and with different people that I've already had. So, get ready for that. Is a new chapter for 2024.
Yeah.
But wherever you guys find your podcast, you'll be able to find us. You can leave a message on the website too. It's a 30-second one, but we want to hear what you want to talk about. As an event coordinator, I'm already planning. Like here we got Valentine's next, then we got March. What is March? I know April Fools is in April and Easter, March, St. Patrick's Day. Yeah, we got
Wait,
St.
wait,
Patrick's Day.
wait, wait. When
I
did they
jumped.
change April? When did they change April Fool's Day to April?
Hmm,
That's what I want to know.
I don't know, some kind of joke, huh? And I know we were talking about, you touched a key with me. It, I just don't know. My friend passed. But if anybody ever thinks about hurting themselves, there is a number and it's 988. And there's no judgment. Please reach out to them or even reach out to me. I am here to help you guys in any way that I can. So, I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of Keep Hope Alive is based around my friend Charity because for 5 years, we talked about just wanting to be heard. And that's what it comes to with this podcast, just being heard
Yeah.
and learning from it and people sharing their stories. So keep them coming. And Dorian, thank you so much. I
Oh,
mean,
it's
you
my
are
pleasure.
amazing to have on the show. So, you know, anybody else who would like to be a guest speaker, you can email me, Nadine at keephopealivepodcast.com. But other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching. And thank you once again for being on the show. Until next time, love and light. Mwah!